9630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Yes. Oh. Now my dirty they smell like this.
Elements within every society, including some lawyers, can equally become unduly resistant to change, even where it is proven that such change is to serve the interests of the larger society.
Make national interest your priority. President Buhari tasked Nigerian lawyers at 58th NBA conference.
More than 6,000 internally displaced persons returned home in Zamfara state after military operations dislodged bandits.
Airlift of Nigerian pilgrims from Saudi Arabia begins today.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the implementation of the currency swap deal between Nigeria and China.
As far back as 2011, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, took the decision to hold a portion of its external reserves in Chinese renminbi, otherwise known as the yuan, making her one of the first countries in the world to do so.
Of course, that decision was taken on the realization that China's influence as a global economic player and that of its currency was fast taking center stage. And of course, Nigeria's trade with China was also increasing significantly.
That's right, Kieran. But it wasn't until April this year that the Central Bank of Nigeria and the People's Bank of China put pen to paper for a bilateral currency swap agreement, which has since taken off.
And yes, Joy, you know, the reason for this action is not far-fetched, as China is Nigeria's largest trading partner in Africa. Besides, over 4.4% of Nigeria's external reserves are denominated in renminbi at the moment.
Of course, Kieran, the currency swap agreement therefore hopes to reduce or even remove the use and influence of a third currency, especially the US dollar, in trade between Nigeria and China, reduce pressure on the Naira exchange rate and ease trade transactions between Nigeria and China.
Now, this agreement, valued at 15 billion yuan or 720 billion naira, which is equivalent to about 2.5 billion US dollars, is valid for an initial period of 3 years, which can be reviewed several times within this 3-year period.
Essentially, the swap is to make a certain amount of renminbi available to the Central Bank of Nigeria and Naira equivalent available to the People's Bank of China. Consequently, the CBN will then make the renminbi available to Nigerian banks, which can be accessed by Nigerians wishing to do business with their Chinese counterparts.
And in effect, Joy, Nigerians buying goods from China can now pay in renminbi, while Chinese importers of Nigerian goods can also pay in Naira instead of using dollars, which is usually sourced, then converted to yuan. But what are the challenges and successes of its operationalization?
Now, that is one among the many questions we shall be raising as we evaluate the currency swap agreement on Good Morning Nigeria today. I am Joy Usiagwa, and it's always good to have you join us on the program broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. We are here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city.
And I am Kirian Umayo. It's of course interesting to have you wake up with us this morning on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, which is the first for the week. And as always, the complimentary segments of the program shall be brought to you, including newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. For now, Miriam Abata is ready to serve us the morning news. Hello, Miriam.
Hello, Kirian and Joy. Good morning, welcome to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has spoken of the need to subject the rule of law to the supremacy of the national security and public interest. Speaking at the opening of the 2018 Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, the president says law can only be practiced optimally in a safe, secure and prosperous Nigeria.
We made appreciable progress in several sectors, including public awareness of the need to challenge the corrupt and the brazen in our midst. We have also learned useful lessons on the dynamism of our society. However, elements within every society, including some lawyers, can equally become unduly resistant to change, even where it is proven that such change is to serve the interests of the larger society.
More than 6,000 internally displaced persons have returned home in Zamfara State. Acting Director, Defense Information, Brigadier General John Ajim stated this in Gusau while addressing newsmen on the progress made so far by Operation Sharon Daji.
Robust patrols and armed escort around vulnerable villages and weekly local markets have built confidence in the community so that bandits no longer have freedom of actions, where they impose levies and harass traders.
In a similar development, farming in northern Borno State has received a boost following donation of tractors to farmers by the Nigerian Army. Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, represented by the Chief of Training and Operations Major General Lamidi Adeoshun, said the gesture is part of Army civil-military relations.
The Army is not only fighting using weapons, the Army is also interested in making the community to rediscover themselves, to continue to pick up the pieces of their life and to be able to live their normal life in their own ancestral homes again.
Now to political matters, the All Progressives Congress, APC, has urged the electorate to resist desperate politicians and their political parties bent on deploying illegal, undemocratic and sinister means, including violence, to manipulate the 2019 general elections. In a statement signed by the National Publicity Secretary of the party, Yekini Nabina, the APC says this is against the backdrop of the recent seizure of Nigeria-bound shift detained in South Africa for carrying arms and explosives. According to the ruling party, there is a red flag which security agencies must note and respond to as political activities heighten in the build-up to the coming elections. The APC urges the opposition to wake up to new realities where votes count and the people's will prevail in elections. The third mainland bridge closed on August 24th for integrity test has been opened following completion of the test. Paul Umukago reports that details of the test result is however expected in 4 weeks.
We have successfully completed the test.
Is he going to do further tests on the underground, the piers and the pike caps?
It just demonstrates what is possible when the different organs and agencies of government work together.
The airlift of Nigerian pilgrims from Saudi Arabia back home is scheduled to commence today. This followed a meeting convened by National Hajj Commission of Nigeria with tour operators in Jeddah.
We have the tradition of fast come, fast to go. That is to say, earlier pilgrims that arrived into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would now go before those ones that came later.
We were confident with the assurances they have given.
Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Joy and Kirian.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Give me the value pack. Helen!
You do great value shopping.
Absolutely. I'm a champion at getting value.
Then you must have bought the Hapic 200 ml.
Why Hapic when I have
this? Even after applying them 10 times, they won't give a sparkling clean toilet.
Impossible.
Challenge. Detergent and bleach can't give a sparkling clean toilet even after 10 times. But Hapic 200 ml gives a sparkling clean toilet at one go.
Wow.
Hapic 200 ml. Real deal. Now only 200 naira.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. Yes, you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils. Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors. Strepsils. 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 For a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Mortise Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortise Power Guard.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria.
Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria this Monday morning. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics says 165.71 million liters of liquefied petroleum gas was imported into the country in the second quarter. Let's join Chimobi Walter Naji for trending news in the business cycle.
The need to move from the gains of the oil sector to other sectors, especially the solid minerals, has been highlighted by some mining experts as a way of creating more jobs and improving the nation's gross domestic product, GDP. Some factors have hampered the growth of this sector over the years, and these include lack of information, technological know-how, and other issues, including developing appropriate data to capture the value of solid minerals deposits in the country and how to harness its potentials.
For the fact that you've heard, there's an information that something is available and this thing can multiply or can be used as a national multiplier, you should delve in. A system should be on the go to delve in. And when you're delving in with all the components, the finance, the technology, and the technical aspect. You bring all of them to bear. And assuming if you go and explore 100 opportunities, and you're lucky with 10, that 10, one of those 10 can pay back your money. 9, my people call it a woof. So what is holding us back?
Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, says 165.71 million liters of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, was imported into the country in the second quarter of the year. The NBS disclosed this in its Petroleum Product Importation and Consumption Truck Out LPG Quarter 2 2018 report released in Abuja. According to the report, April recorded the highest volumes of LPG imported into the country at 59.89 million liters. The report says 55.37 million liters was imported in May, while the lowest volume was imported in June at 50.45 million liters in the period under review. And to the equities market, a 2018 half-year performance review of portfolio investments and the equities segment of the Nigerian Stock Exchange has shown that turnover value increased to about 1.6 trillion naira from about 935 billion naira recorded in half-year 2017. However, the latest trading figures from major custodians and market operators on their foreign portfolio investment (FPI) flows in 6 months, January to June, published by the NSE, revealed that value of transactions both by foreign and domestic investors dropped appreciably in June compared to May. Foreign investors outperformed domestic investors by 9.07% in June 2018, as total domestic transactions reduced by 31.87% from 125.32 billion naira in May to 85.37 billion naira in June 2018. The report also added that FPIs continued to dominate trading with 54.2% participation, while domestic investors constituted 45.8% within the month. And that's it on the business news. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Chimobi there with the business news for today. Thank you, Chimobi. Now, newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria.
right, let's start by looking at the front page of the New Telegraph for today. For the lead story there, it says, 2019, that's the kicker. APC plots takeover of Southeast, South. We have about 4 riders. Party, defections, infrastructural development boost Buhari's chances. PDP, we're not disturbed. McCarthy, we can defeat president. Anxiety as NAS meets over 189 billion naira election budget. You can get details of these stories on pages 2, 4, 5, 11, and 13. For the Guardian newspaper, which is our next, the lead story there says, U.S.-China trade war worsens Nigeria's non-oil exporters' woes. Kirian, let's see the
All right,
stories
now let's turn to the leadership. Leadership has the main headline as a jostle for automatic ticket on settles APC senators with 3 riders. Lawmakers G3, governors may truncate party's pledge. Work against reconvening before party primaries. APC disowns fake registration website, sweeps Imo local government polls. That's on leadership this morning. And again, on Punch newspaper, let's turn to the Punch newspaper, where we have a striking headline there. Wike locks horns with AFCC over fresh probe into Rivers finances. Page 10 has details of that story. But it has 2 riders. Anti-graft agency alleges 117 billion naira curious withdrawals by the state government. No Rivers official will appear before EFCC governor vows.
All right, let's just take a look at some of the stories below on the front page of the New Telegraph before we talk about the key stories there. If you look below the main story on the New Telegraph, there's a picture story there which says, 3rd mainland bridge reopens. And below that is one other story which says, Lagos PDP chairman set to defect to APC, party executives to dump party. We have the similar story on The Guardian newspaper, just beside the picture story below the nameplate. 3rd mainland bridge reopens. Test result expected in 3 weeks. I don't know if you have that story, Kirian.
No, it's not on the Punch newspaper, right? But we can talk about that. You know, the reopening of the 3rd mainland bridge is a good development,
That's
especially
story,
for commuters in Lagos, because they have really went through some difficulties. You know, traffic grade in diverted areas, you know, when the bridge was being maintained. But it's a success being recorded, you know, by the government, you know, making sure that the bridge is back.
That's right, Kieran. Like I keep saying, you see, in this era when we have stories of defections in the last few months, it seems as if the APC government is not bothered. They're more focused on infrastructural development. And that, for me, is a plus for the administration. Like it is said here in one of the stories on the New Telegraph, it says infrastructural development boosts Buhari's chances.
All right, but you see, this issue of defection is either way. People are going this way and the other way. I mean, it's interchanging, and perhaps close to the elections, we'll be able to stabilize or have a stabilized polity with respect to defections.
But this is something that everyone should expect as we march towards 2019.
Now, let's go to Punch newspaper. Punch newspaper. That's above the nameplate. We won't step down for autumn. 12 PDP aspirants insist. It's on page 54 or 56 rather. And then below that we have Buhari says rule of law must be subject to national interest. It's on page 58. Primaries. APC meets Tuesday and Thursday. Challenges or store membership registration. It's on page 56. Now, cocoa processors grown under 50 billion naira debt. Huge losses. Page 33 has that story. And again, you could see the photograph on the Punch newspaper. That's a Dobra. You know, with respect to the just concluded Eid Kabir celebration. But besides that, we have a PDP delays nomination form sale, page 14. Violence, Kaduna imposes curfew on 2 communities, is on page 8. And of course, below that we have policeman kills Taylor over alleged stolen clothes. That's on page 4 of the Punch.
All right, let's go back quickly to the Guardian newspaper. Below the nameplate is this story which says, I am confident of picking PDP's ticket, and that comment is attributed to McCarthy of the PDP. You can get details of that story on page 5. And beside that, no headquarters relocation to Niger Delta, order to oil firms, says presidency. And beside the picture story, just a little bit below, are a couple of stories. Banks get 23 trillion deposits, engage 44,000 casual workers. And below that is tributes as U.S. 6th Senator John McCain dies at 81.
All right, Joy, let's talk about that of PDP. McCarthy saying he is confident of picking the ticket. You know, this is a party where we have big weights, you know, big political big weights, you know, Atiku is there, Lamido, and the rest of them, you know, and Nigerians are looking forward to, you know, experiencing the congress of the party where an aspirant will be picked, you know.
Well, we look forward to what this drama will lead to. 2019 definitely will be an interesting year for the Nigerian polity.
All right, now we've read something on the jostle for automatic ticket on certain APC senators. Of course, there's still political discussions going on in the polity to determine who goes where before the 2019 election. Now, but below the photograph of on Leadership newspaper, Nigeria imports 166 million liters of gas in second quarter. That's on page 35. And close to that is 2019, Atiku denies defection rumors. Well, we've had in the past, about a couple of days ago, that he has defected to Abuja, you know, to pick the presidential ticket because the party just announced that they are going to present a presidential candidate by 2019, which was a decision taken just about last week. And they said Atiku is going to defect to the party. Now it has been denied. That's on page 13 of Leadership. Now, Dangote, 40 others raised 143 billion naira from commercial papers issuance. It's on page 4. But that's one interesting story here, Joy, on Leadership. Just also besides the photograph there, we can't sacrifice national security for rule of law, said President Muhammadu Buhari. It's on page 2.
We have that Leadership. Similar story. If you go to the front page of the New Telegraph, just below the name plate, Buhari to lawyers, national security superior to rule of law. That shows that the president is very interested in security matters.
Well, security has been a challenge in this country in a couple of years now, but it has been stemmed down basically because of the vigorous, you know, attack on the perpetrators of insecurity in the country. And so it's a plus too for this administration. Of course, everybody agrees to that. We have more stories there.
Let's go to our editorial for today.
All right. Now, editorial, it's a very important editorial, if I may say so, from Daily Sun, tracking fuel consumption and stolen crude oil. Now, the federal government's approval of an automated fuel system management and sensor network aimed at tracking petroleum products movement across the country is cheering. The plan will gob 17 billion naira. Apart from ensuring order in the fuel distribution system, it will also determine the quality and quantity of fuel consumed in the country, as well as eliminate fuel subsidy scam. I will recall that in the past, suggestions have been made for this kind of tracking devices on the trucks. And of course, because Nigeria has two satellites operational now, one of them could be deployed, effectively, especially the Nigerian communications satellite. In this tracking aspect of the movement of the trucks carrying fuel can be tracked from the sky and you are spotted immediately, it's a possibility. And now that Nigeria is, indicating interest in doing this, it will augur well for the oil industry in this country.
That would be an interesting development, because the issue of tracking the movement of fuel across this country and even outside the country, especially considering our porous borders as being a worrisome situation. And if they can get this right, then we will be on the right path.
All right, and that's how we concluded newspaper review for this morning. Grab your papers and, of course, get details of the reports that we have read to you. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA network service. We'll now take a short break, and when we return, we shall move into the nitty-gritty of our conversation this morning.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Win a trip to Dubai in the 2018 Three Crowns Mom of the Year promo. Visit www.femininelounge.com/competition to find out more.
3 Crowns Milk. Healthy moms, happy families.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now?
Sure.
This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X. Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that
Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Brought us as usual.
As usual.
You
have no problem.
For the three
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
Welcome. You take that one.
Yes.
You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mom to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
For years, the NTA has been promoting science, technology, arts and crafts under the tagged name National Children's Expo. We are set with another edition as we gather children around Nigeria. junior category ages 6 to 12, and senior category ages 13 to 18. The theme for Expo 2018, achieving self-sufficiency in agriculture, meeting the challenges of security and exposition of alternative energy as pathways to national development. Date, October 21st to 25th, 2018. Venue, NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. We are set to celebrate the best of innovation across the country. For more information, please call the following numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
Now, correspondent Mitaire Ikben has put together this background report to usher us into our topic of discussion.
After many years of negotiations, Nigeria eventually signed in April 2018 a currency swap deal with China. The bilateral currency swap agreement between the Central Bank of Nigeria and the People's Bank of China is a 3-year deal to swap currency totaling 16 billion Chinese yuan, equivalent of 720 billion naira, valued at about 2.5 billion US dollars. Reasons why the CBN opted for the currency swap are not far-fetched, as China is Nigeria's largest trading partner, contributing about 22% of imports to Nigeria as at last quarter of 2017. The currency swap is expected to make trade between the two countries less reliant on the US dollar and also reduce the pressure on the naira exchange rate, which previously resulted from demand for the dollars by businessmen. Instead of using the US dollar at applicable exchange rates for transactions with China, Nigerian businessmen can now buy the Chinese yuan, also at the prevailing rates, and import goods directly. This, according to experts, could make imports from China 5 times cheaper and is likely to compel a drastic reduction in inflation rates and a major boost for the Nigerian economy. It will also lead to direct foreign investment from China to Nigeria in the long run. Juicy as the currency swap deal may be, economic analysts have also expressed fears about potential demerits to Nigeria, given the country's trade deficit with China. Some have asked how much of Nigeria's finished products are consumed in China and how the deal will help Nigeria's quest for industrialization. Will the currency swap by implication not make Nigeria a dumping ground for Chinese products? How has the initiative fared since it came into effect in April? What are the challenges and successes? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will discuss the issues shortly.
Thank you, Mitaire. Yes, all the issues will be dissected in this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, and joining us to do just that is Mr. Isaac Okorafor. He's Acting Director of Communication at Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you so very much, Girian.
All right, and we are going to meet a man of different valleys. It's a man who's been the Minister of Labor, Defense, and Culture and Tourism. He is in the person of Adetokunbo Kayode-san, President of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. That's where he is at the moment. Sir, thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
And with us also this morning is Barrister Ken Ukoha, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. It's a pleasure, really, to have you here with us this morning. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Kaden.
Also joining us from our Kaduna studio is Dr. Yushau Ibrahim Ango. He's an Associate Professor of Business Entrepreneurship and Director Academic Planning, Kaduna State University. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Professor, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And in Lagos, we have Mr. Tilewa Adebajo, is a financial analyst and a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria. Mr. Tilewa, thanks for joining us again this Monday morning.
Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us on the show. Now, currency swap agreement between Nigeria and China is about 4 months old now. And since it came into effect, many Nigerians have been asking different questions. Now, could you do us a background? I'm talking to Okora for now. Do us a background of this agreement. What led to the deal, and why is it necessary at this point in time?
Well, thank you, Kirian. The reasons behind our going into a bilateral currency swap agreement with the People's Bank of China, the reasons are very clear. We'll recall that 2-3 years ago, we were hit, the economy was hit by a very severe foreign exchange crunch. And the Naira depreciated to as low as 5.25 to the dollar. And it was the product of years of failure to diversify the Nigerian economy. And so it was only natural that when the price of crude oil fell internationally, we were hit by that headwind. And the Central Bank of Nigeria struggled very hard to be able to stabilize the system. Having stabilized the system, we decided that it had become necessary to put in place policies and instruments that will cushion the kind of shocks that we had that time, that will protect our reserves, a kind of buffer. And so we started a series of policies. First, we introduced the rationing of dollars to ensure that we sold dollars to only foreign exchange to only those sectors that were strategic and that could spur growth and create jobs. We also introduced what we call the 41 items policy, where we said anybody who wanted to import any of the items on that list could go source their own foreign exchange. And then coming over to the currency swap. Before then, we had actually introduced complementary policies to be able to cushion the impact of the 41 items. That is to say, we vigorously started funding local producers, manufacturers, and those in agri to be able to supply foods and goods that will take over the gap created by the fall in imports. And so in an attempt to further enhance what we have done, we went into the currency swap. And the reason is simple. Nigeria's imports, China accounts for about 1/3 of Nigeria's imports. And so, which means the demand for foreign exchange to import from China was so significant in the foreign exchange market and put so much pressure on our reserves. So what we have decided is that if we are able to remove the pressure from the demand for foreign exchange as it affects imports from China, our foreign exchange market will stabilize even the more, and the pressure on our reserves will be lifted. That is why we went into that agreement.
All right, thank you very much for that brief background, Mr. Kafo. Let's go quickly to Prince Kaide's son. Now, it's been 4 months since we got into the currency swap deal. How valuable, how important is that deal for Nigeria at this time? Would you say it is necessary?
Of course it is, and but it's still early days. First of all, the policy and the deal is good for our economy. We must be dynamic. We cannot continue to do the same thing the same way. We're trying to diversify the economy. Not only in doing that, we need to steadily develop our productive base. Easy access to raw materials, easy access to spare parts and to critical equipment, manufacturing equipment. These generally are sourced from, at least the way our economy is now, is from China. And it's good to be able to make funds available for those who must bring these things in. Whether we like it or not, we must do that. So yes, it's a good policy, and the private sector will support it. And I say it's early days yet. I think they had the third auction just last week, and so there's still some teething issues which are being cleaned up. But across the board, we think it's a good policy. But as I said, as we move on, we begin to see areas where additional clarity needs to be given and additional policies need to be added, especially how this swap will impact and benefit the bulk of our business people, of the private sector, which is the SMEs. I can say, without any fear of contradiction, that SMEs in Nigeria constitute about 75% of the productive base. How would they be able to key into this? And fortunately, my chamber had hosted one of the sensitization programs for the CBN, because we support the policy of the governor. We actually salute his courage in driving this. So we had hosted one of the key sensitization programs some weeks ago, and we had raised this issue with them about how we want clarity as to how this will impact on the SMEs, the bulk of people doing business. And we have seen that they're considering it, and we'll continue to engage with them. As I said, it's early days, but in principle, it's a good policy, and it is not new. Egypt, South Africa have done. Actually, we are doing the smallest because, again, Nigeria, because everybody has views, and so they have to tread cautiously. But it is not new. And other countries are doing it. In the Asian countries, they're doing swap, bilateral swap, multilateral swap, country-to-country swap. America actually has led the way in doing all kinds of swaps. It's a convenient money currency exchange program to ease the pressure on your own currency and also allow you to manage your foreign exchange transactions and your basket of funds. So it's a good deal.
Well, it's interesting to know that other countries are doing it. Let's also hope that it's going to work down here, because we've had in the past in this country where we were told that the country has tried all, economic policies, but they never worked, but they work elsewhere. So let's hope that this one is going to work. Now, before we get to Barrister Ken Ukoha, who is the President of the National Association of Nigerian Traders directly involved in this matter, let's go to Dr. Ibrahim Ango, Associate Professor of Business Entrepreneurship and Director of Academic Planning, Kaduna State University. Sir, let's get your own view on the necessity for this deal. Of course, Mr. Okoronkwo has done some explanations, giving us a background. Mr. Okorafor, rather, has given us a background to this. Now, what's your take on the need for us to embark on this kind of a complex economic program?
I believe, like has been stated, that this is one of the initiatives which I think are very positive that have come from the Central Bank of Nigeria. We need to diversify our economy, but at the same time, we need to stabilize our foreign exchange market. And I believe this will ease out and reduce the demand on dollar itself on the economy. That way, I believe, is going to be a positive development, of course, depending on how it is managed. My take is that it's a positive development, it's a good initiative, and I believe we need more of that to stabilize the currency so as not to experience the kind of shocks we suffered from in the last few years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ango in Kaduna Network Center. We'll come back to you in the course of this program. Let's go quickly to Barrister Ken Ukoha, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Barrister Ken, we were here a couple of weeks ago discussing this same issue. Now we're doing a critical analysis of this swap deal 4 months in. How is the business community receiving this?
Thank you very much. I think, just like you rightly said, we were here a few weeks back on this same subject matter at this particular ground. And for all I know, I think it's important to first commend the Central Bank of Nigeria for coming up with this kind of initiative. And like other speakers have said, this is one initiative that should be given a thumbs up. Why? Because we don't need to put all our eggs in one basket. And this is exactly what we were doing earlier. And that resulted into dollarizing our economy, in quote. And therefore, we were left the fragrance of, the dollar and the international market. And therefore, the economy was just nosediving. And, they could, press a button, and then we keep on sneezing here. And knowing also that, 68.7 percent of trade imports come from Asian tigers, the Asian tigers, and over 70% of these 68.7 comes directly from China. Then it's very important that we should have had this even earlier, this kind of swap even earlier. Now, again, it's also important to commend the CBN for having stepped in by, working towards what we agreed on at this platform on that day, that they should organize sensitizations on this particular matter so that the traders themselves will understand what are the implications, what is the content, what's the meaning, what do they need to do, and what's their role and their functions in this particular matter, so that, the entire program, the entire project would gain its results. Now, having said this, like was said earlier, and I want to believe that this is still at the experimental stage. For us, we have had quite a number of calls, reports from traders, importers, who are asking, how do I get this? How do I bring how do I collect my yarn? And that's exactly what they say. How do I collect my yarn? As if it is just there on the table, you go and pick it and move. But that's not the way it works. But I think that what is happening now is that there is still need for more understanding of what this is by the traders. 2, there is need for CBN to continue having consultations with the actors in the field, the practical actors, the commercialians, the traders, importers, the manufacturers, and, like my learned senior said, the small and medium enterprises, SMEs. This is where this game is heading to. And finally, on this matter, it's important to note that there is a Form Q, which the CBN provided for us. Again, I think I will not be stepping too far if I commend that form, because it is so simplified, and that's exactly what we asked them to do. Simplify this form, and in fact, they did it in a way that it became one page. So as a trader, you don't need to you don't need to look for a lawyer to start filling this form for you. You don't need to any accountant to fill the form for you. You don't need anything. Just fill this one-page document, and very simplified, and that goes. And I think is something that we need to, look at, despite the fact that there are some hiccups here and there, which are, teething problems that we need to gather ourselves together and then, on a round table, discuss on the way to go about them. Thank you.
All right, thank you too. It's on the experimental stage. Perhaps in the course of this conversation, we'll be able to know whether there is any result from that experiment. Thank you indeed. This time, let's go to Lagos, where Mr. Tilawa Adebanjo is. He's a financial analyst. Tilawa, let me ask you this. Considering also what have been said here at the Abuja end of the studio. Now, what is your take on this drive, being made by Nigeria in respect of a currency swap, which is now the in thing in the economic field, was to take, considering the merits and demerits, and of course the content, and of course the strategic implementation of this swap?
Thank you. My name is Tilewa Adebajo, not Adebanjo, just for points of correction. First of all, I think all the other speakers have spoken very well. I think it's very important that we are not reinventing the wheel, and it's important that we also begin to take advantage of financial instruments that are available on the global stage. There's nothing experimental about currency swaps. It's just a question of orientation for us to be able to take advantage of this very good innovation. My own personal take is that right now the exchange rate is about 1 naira to about 53 Chinese renminbi. So this is a good development in terms of establishing a rate for that. The beneficiaries for this obviously would be people who normally go through the formal banking channels to open their letters of credits. And I think the banking sectors should be able to drive the process of getting their customers to take advantage of this. Taking a look at the amount of trade between China and Nigeria is about $13 billion. The amount of this transaction is about 20% of that trade, which is a very good start. And I think that once the system has been perfected, I think we need to now begin to see how we can increase the level of this funding, because clearly the advantage to the system, to the economy, is quite significant. What I would also like to see, like I've always argued, is the fact that the naira is currently overvalued. It would be good if Isaac can tell us when they're going to begin to shut down the multiple exchange rate windows so that we can begin to see harmonization of rates. And with this sort of diversification of currency available for trade, then I think that we should now begin to move the argument from just a currency swap to see why the naira is not trading around about 220, 230 to the dollar. Because now what we want to see is that what would be the impact of the fact that we've diversified this currency. So those are the sort of discussions that I would like to see, and to see if there are any other transactions in maybe any other currencies. For instance, like euro. Do we want to do a euro deal? Because the European trading bloc is also quite another significant one. If we can diversify away from the demand for the dollar, then we can begin to see how this will impact us. Nigeria exports about $38 billion worth of goods in a year, and the largest component of that export is petroleum, crude oil. And our imports are also about 30 billion, and the largest exponent of that, unfortunately, is also petroleum products, because we don't have refineries. So we also have to address our trade imbalances and to see how we can get a stronger naira. I think, as everybody has said, I think it's a welcome development. It's a good start, but then the impact that I would like to see is this right now should be the naira should be trading at about 220, and that's what I would like to see, the impact of the easing of that pressure on the dollar on the reduction of naira rates, especially when your reserves are also quite significant. So those are the sort of questions I'd like Isaac to help us address this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo, for your perspective. We'll get back to you shortly. Now, let's bring in Mr. Isaac Okarafo into the discussion again. From our conversation, it is obvious that this is a welcome development for Nigeria at this time. But of course, this is the very early stage, and there are teething issues. Before we deal with these issues, let's hear from you. What will be the mode of operation? Because if you remember, Barrister Ken did talk about those in the business community wanting to know where they can get the yuan from and some other issues. So let's hear from you. What will be the mode of operation?
Well, thank you so much, Joy. transactions that qualify to benefit from this deal are transactions that follow the formal channel. We did that for the very clear reason that informal trade has all kinds of encumbrances and problems. Let me start by saying that for a trader or an importer or a manufacturer to take part in this transaction, to benefit from this deal, you don't need to do anything new. It follows the normal process of importation if you are importing from China. You open a Form M, the treatment of LCs, the same thing. The only thing is that an importer in Nigeria would have to tell his or her exporter in China to denominate his or her invoice in renminbi. That's the only thing. Your bank will still handle issues on your behalf, just in the normal process, that as if you're using the dollar. But one thing we need to note here is that nobody is going to be giving renminbi to hold. That is why most of the traders are disappointed with it, those in the informal sector. You see, once you begin to do that, you encourage round tripping. So you wouldn't see the money, but you will have it. It is by transfers. You have to open your Form M, you have to open your LC, and then you do your business. And all the imports must originate from China. We will not entertain somebody telling us, okay, this goods is from India or from Vietnam. We pay to China. We want to no, everything must originate from China itself. And we can't. We apologize to the traders who think that they will be given the renminbi to trade with. No, it's not going to happen that way. And one of the reasons also is that most of the substandard goods that we have, and people have actually raised it, that it will, some people who didn't understand it would have been saying that it will lead to the dumping of substandard goods on Nigeria. It's not going to happen because most of the substandard goods that we have, that we get from China, are goods imported by traders who buy dollars, hop on a plane, land there, tell these people, okay, no, reduce the quality of this one and so I can pay lower. And then they will put it together and bring back. But this one is going to follow the official channel, and the standards recognized internationally will be followed. Every good that will come in through this deal will be of the highest international standard.
Is this deal, before you go on, is this deal open to all traders?
It is open to all traders. Anybody who wants to legitimately import from China or export to China.
Now, you talked about this issue of quality, having some traders go to, we've heard stories like that before, especially in the pharmaceutical sector, where they go and tell them reduce the quality of the drugs. Who will check to ensure that people stick to the rules?
Well, we, on our part, we are working with the regulatory agencies, NAFDAC, Standard Organization of Nigeria, and of course, people and the People's Bank of China is also doing same on their side. It has to follow. Of course, there are standards of products that are traded internationally. All those standards will have to be adhered to.
All right, from Aziko Korafo, the process is the same, yet there are encumbrances and challenges therein. And I'd like Prince Kayode to come in here. What are these encumbrances, and how can we, develop a strategy that will enable the actors, take care of such encumbrances and do a smooth running business?
Well, this is where some of the challenges that the issues that the CBN really has to tackle. First of all, you see, whether we like it or not, we are an informal economy because the majority of business people in Nigeria are in the informal sector. Our system of economy has not enabled them to migrate from the informal to the formal. And that's one of the reasons why we don't get enough tax. It's difficult to tax the informal sector. All we need to do is begin to enable them. This is a policy that is good and can actually enable them to come to the formal sector where they can be able to use these instruments. Now, if you have to only go by means of LC, and the bulk of the people are not using that, some people get shut out. Secondly, if we have also understood, which I don't agree with, but if it's a view that it's mainly people in the informal sector that don't comply with the standards, then let's encourage them to come in. In any case, we have sun cap. You can hardly import into Nigeria without a sun cap. That is the regulatory certificate from Standards Organization. You can tighten this. I know the position of NANS is that, yes, Standard Organization, NAFDAC, Customs, we tighten them. Those are government issues, and they've existed even, before now, it's always been there. But we just begin to rethink the way the CBN is thinking out of the box. We get those organizations to think out of the box to make sure that standards are complied with. So I do not think that is really an issue. I think, one, we must find a way to expand the base of those who are impacted, those who take advantage from this policy that we think is good. And we have talked about pulling people together in the form of cooperatives so that they can actually have a strong base to use LCs to fund the imports. Raw materials. It's not only big companies that use raw materials. Small companies do use raw materials. People doing agro-processing, doing small enterprise manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Raw materials, spare parts, and equipment. Okay, this is the main focus of this swap, right? Yeah, and the bulk of people that really need it are those people you talked about who go with cash or who do small TTs, telegraphic transfer. We must find a way to bring them in. And I think actively, not actually really begging or explaining or cajoling Standards Organization, but you can get them. Some of them have very strong leadership now. The DG of Standards Organization is doing very well. Just encourage him to think out of the box, to rejig the system he is operating and make sure that the sun cap is very effective. Now, you see, the people, all over now, all of us have agreed that this is a good policy. We just want the CBN to take it forward, okay? And understand that it is when the larger community within the business sector feels it, that's when the real effectiveness will come in. That's when the real accolades must come in. And this is what they need to do. And I don't want anybody to worry about whether swap is issue of dollarization or whatever, because the whole international economy is dollarized. Even the yuan is dollarized. Everybody still benchmark himself against the dollar. But we are pursuing a good policy here. We can drive it more, provide more funds to it, but those funds should impact on the larger sector. Those 800 to 1,000 Nigerian business who travel to China daily to check all those airlines. You can get the statistics. I just put an average because the volume of transaction between us and China is actually much higher than captured because a lot of it is in the informal sector. And you'll find out that the demand will even be higher. But if we're able to work with them and bring them into the loop of this deal, then you begin to see the actual volume. We can also be able to control even what they do and emphasize on production, not people bringing in consumable goods and stuff, but to emphasize on production, on the raw materials, on the spare parts, on the machinery. And of course, we continue to do policy, bring in policies that will encourage this to continue to happen. And it's a continuous business, it's a continuous job. We are just starting a long journey that will take us to give us a viable economy, a productive economy, which is then will be what will ultimately shore up our currency. If you don't have a strong base, your currency cannot, you cannot really get a strong currency. You must be able to produce. And that production is the base of, I believe, the policy of swap. And the larger people involved, the informal sector, are actually ultimately going to be that sector that will help us to drive this. So this is the challenge. It's not a big problem. It's just a matter of consistently pursuing good policies and driving it until you get to the way you want to.
Thank you, Prince Kayode. Now, Kirian, before you go to Kaduna, Mr. Okorafor is itching to respond to Prince Kayode's comments.
A few points they have made that I need to respond to. The barrister Koha said something about SMEs. And the former minister has also mentioned, alluded to it. I think I take his suggestion that in order to enable these SMEs to migrate to the formal trading sector, that they could form cooperatives, they could aggregate. I think it's something we can look at. It's something that we can think about just to help them. I also want to note this, that one of the key objectives of this deal is to be able to pool SMEs, their ability to produce. And this is how we intend to do that. They need simple machines, very cheap. And of course, you know, China is a low-cost economy. They will need spare parts, ICs, fuses, switches to conduct their own production. That will be available. And we also have several SMEs that export to China, solid minerals, some petroleum products. And these are opportunities that are there. It's not just importation, but also exports.
And in the course of this discussion, we'll also look at the manufacturing capacity of Nigeria, of course, to withstand what China has in this process of swap. Let's return to Kaduna, where we have Dr. Ibrahim Ango. So I want to ask you this: we are still on the modus operandi of this deal, and considering the trade imbalance between Nigeria and China, what are those the challenges that you envisage as we operationalize this deal?
You put it rightly that there is trade imbalance between Nigeria and China. The trade is in favor of China because largely we are importing from China, and all we have been talking about today, except for the few occasions that Mr. Okorafor mentioned export, we have been talking about import, and import. Largely that is what is happening. We are importing so much from China. We are exporting largely oil to China. So in that regard, that is an issue. And I believe what is important is the central bank and other agencies of government are together working, generally to improve the economy, including diversifying the economy. Now, what needs to be done as we are doing this, as we are encouraging options and giving opportunities for diversification and opportunities to source currency through other means, not just dollar, we should also as well, I believe Central Bank of Nigeria should as well encourage the issue of export also in the same way. I also want to comment on the issue of the informal sector, and the informal sector, and the informal sector. All along, every time we talk about informal sector, and the former minister mentioned the fact that there is need to bring in this informal sector into this. I agree, but I believe his suggestion on getting them to form cooperatives maybe would be the good idea. What I think we need to do is to encourage our informal sector to come into the mainstream. We shouldn't encourage the informal sector to continue informally. We should, as much as possible, bring them into the mainstream. And I think the earlier suggestion by the chairman of the Traders Union that there is there is need for more sensitization is also something that need to be done. We need to formalize the economy. We need to formalize it, rather than allowing this informal sector to always dominate all the time. Then I also want to comment on the issue of the foreign exchange. Mr. Tilewa's comment that there is need to merge the two currencies. The two exchange rates, the dual exchange rates, to merge it. The implications are clear. If you have two exchange rates, there is possibility of abuse and all that and all that. But I believe with the various policies that have been taken, we are probably not ready right now for a 220 naira to a dollar, but I see it coming, you know, with so many things that are happening. Already as stated, a large chunk of our imports is actually in oil. And I know the initiatives that have been done that will now, maybe by next year, will have sufficient processed, refined oil in Nigeria. That also will improve our foreign exchange. So it's a collection of various policies that will improve the exchange. I will encourage that we follow it through, and I'm sure ultimately we may have something better than 220. But I don't think it should be swift, you know, something that will just happen once and then we'll not be able to sustain it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ango in Kaduna. Let's go quickly back to Mr. Atilewa Adebajo in Lagos before we bring in Barrister Ken Okohwa into the conversation. Mr. Atilewa, we're still looking at the mode of operation and we're analyzing the challenges involved in this trade deal, this swap business. We have talked about the issue of imbalance. What are some of the things we need to do on our part in Nigeria to check and ensure that we benefit from this swap deal?
Thank you very much. Please also, I think Isaac still has to answer some questions I posed earlier. So I'll appreciate maybe if you can give me a response because you know, it's always a privilege to have him here so that we can at least put him on the spot on certain issues to understand the direction the central bank is going, especially with this sort of innovative ideas they have. I have to agree with Isaac in the sense that the global economy is a structured formal system. So if you're in the formal sector, you have to find ways to structure your business accordingly. It's not a big deal to open a bank account to go and open an LC. You can open an LC of 5,000 naira or 10,000 naira. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's $5,000 or $10,000. It's not a big deal, and I don't want us to make it as such in terms of forming cooperatives. Most Nigerians now have access to banking facilities, and these are standard and basic instruments that people want to go. What will happen is the fact that the formal people who are engaging in this, because of the benefits of the exchange rate systems that they will be getting, obviously they will be able to land their goods cheaper. And at the end of the day, it's not everybody that needs to import. We can have a big wholesaler here that is importing, and other distributors can come and buy off them. And I think that's what we need to learn so that you can give your informal sector people the right margins that encourage them to buy the stuff from a larger importer than wanting to go abroad to go and import on their own. So I think it's a question of free market economies, and I think that if the formal sector, in the informal sector, people realize their benefits to this, they would formalize their trade. And I'm sure that that will begin to happen when you see the fact that you are getting a better exchange rate going through the formal system than if you're going to have to buy your dollars on the street. The informal sector people are very, very astute and sensitive to pricing. And if they see the benefits, I'm sure they'll quickly formalize. So I don't really think that should be the problem. I think we need to take a look at the bigger picture. And this is why I want Isaac's contribution in terms of how we want to now begin to see the impact of this on our foreign exchange system. If you have 20% of the trade, you are able to have that should more or less translate into the fact that since you already have 20% of the value of the trade, there should be 20% less demand, at least on Chinese imports for dollars. So how does that translate into impacting or reducing the dollar, which I said? And my argument for the dollar is based on the fact that the reserves are at good levels, in terms of the fact that there is what is the political economy to the multiple exchange rates that we currently operate that is causing distortions in the dollar. And I think that what we need to begin to look at is that this is a good policy, But the ultimate impact of this policy should be the fact that we should be getting Naira to the dollar at close to 250. And that is the impact I would like us to see, and that is what I would like the central bank to address. The real benefit is the fact that the dollar to Naira rate should come down.
Thank you, Mr. Adebajo. Well, you'd like to respond to that before we go to Barrister?
Yeah, let me just quickly respond to him. Since Mr. Adebajo is putting me on the spot. I think Professor Ango Ibrahim actually answered the question on the measure of the exchange rates. And I want to say that if you had watched the exchange rate in the last 2 months, you would have seen that the base has come down from about 262 to 260. In fact, if you want to buy a dollar in Abuja today, you are likely to get 350. I'm sorry, 350, 362, 363. It has come down to about 357. Yesterday, afternoon rates showed 357 if you want to sell a $1 here in Abuja. So you can see that the economy is responding. You may say that it's not very fast, but something is beginning to happen. And all we are trying to do is to maintain some level of stability that will now pull up our productive base, because it's all sums up to production. If you don't produce and export, your currency cannot be strong. So that's what we are trying to do. All these tinkering and innovations are geared towards making sure that first, a level of stability is maintained.
Dollar in that particular regard. And simulate this to the point that progressively, this is exactly how in the next 6 months, this is how dollar will be getting to. In the next 1 year, this is how it is getting to. And then we can be recording stability that way in a progressive manner. Nobody is saying that it's going to jump immediately and say, look, dollar will now be 300 naira immediately after this swap has done. No, not of it. But let me get to another point, which is the fact that the issue of aggregation is very important for us as traders and as actors. And this is all about formalization of the informal trade. Now, there is what we call aggregation, which is what we are also trying to do with this swap of a deal, because of the concerns that have been raised by our members. We're trying to bring them together after informing them that, look, this is not something you get on the counter. You don't get cash of yuan on the counter. You can pull yourselves together, if you like a corporation, a cooperative, like was earlier said. If you like, you know, groupage, that's what we call it, groupage. these are the people, the number of people, 10 people that want to import from China. These are the items they want to import, provided these items fall within the bracket of the 41 items that are exclusive. So that you don't go and fill your form queue outside the mandate of the 41 items and other related ones. So if you bring in anything within the bracket of 41 items prohibited, sorry, you are your own. And with that, we can be able to guide them, gradually and progressively also. You will see that these people now are getting formalized, but then there is one thing that will come in, and which is a question of dispute settlement. There's going to be some kind of disputes that are arising from transactions between here and China. And of course, we have seen in the past where Chinese products come in and they are fake, they are substandard, and our traders do not have anywhere to rely on for adjudication or for any settlement.
But we learned that some of the traders make a request, deliberately request for such.
Sure, some. But some others also fall into the hands of unscrupulous manufacturers from China. And this, we have a lot of these complaints on our table. How do we sort out this? How do we begin to address this? And I think this is where the formalization now comes in. Since this is not something you get on the counter, the cash you get on the counter, and this has a route that is electronic. Now, the CBN has a responsibility here to tag wherever this particular importer is and wherever this particular exporter is, link them up, and there is a government that is responsible, the Chinese government. And we can now, with this particular internal committee here, that's one thing I raised earlier the other day, an internal committee should be set up, not just CBN, but CBN, yes, chairing, the chambers, NANS, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, come together. Then customs, very important here, to ensure that the list of the items that are being imported are not, within the 41 items. And then NAFDAC, SON, CPC, the Consumer Protection Council, because consumers also need to be protected within this particular intel. Yes. And that is why I said this particular system will now begin to work, and people, traders, will also working towards a formal system. Thank you.
Joy, as we progress, Mr. Korafa will be talking on this, when we return.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, obviously there are issues to deal with. We'll look at these issues shortly.
In hot and dry conditions is hard. Causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another.
What keeps you so cool, man?
Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel. For super cool confidence, use Dettol Cool.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Move now! The red light won't kill you! Move now!
To they disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I no go dey do am again. Because change begins with me.
Let's cross the other side of the road.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make I dey stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go dey stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and we are looking at the swap agreement between Nigeria and China. I also have our guests here in the studio, Mr. Isaac Okorafor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Prince Adistokumbo Kayode San from Chamber of Commerce, Professor Barrister Ken Ukoha, President of Traders Association, Ibrahim Ango, lecturer in Kaduna State University, and of course Mr. Adebajo, financial analyst in Lagos. For now, let's take a look at what Nigerians are beginning to tell us about this conversation. And I have Cecilia Okoroma here. She says the currency swap deal is indeed a great policy that will reduce the frivolous demand for dollars. A salute to the initiators of the deal.
Dele Jack Solomon Medj tweets, the operationalization of the swap agreement between Nigeria and China will make it easier for most Nigerian manufacturers, especially small and medium enterprises and cottage industries in manufacturing and export businesses to import raw materials, spare parts, and simple machinery to undertake their businesses by taking advantage of available renminbi liquidity from Nigerian banks without being exposed to difficulties of seeking other scarce foreign currencies.
And Cecilia Okoroma once more says, Nigerian manufacturers and investors must use the currency swap deal to boost the manufacturing sector rather than import junks.
And this one is coming from Sunny Michael Omakoji. While currency swap gives opportunity to have more access to Chinese economy, it's going to also encourage capital flight, loss of national identity, and of course dumping ground for the Asian tigers. It is not a smart policy as it is going to tell on Nigerian economy in the long run.
Yes, now from Festus Akimbo, I hail Nigeria's currency swap with China because by implication, it links Nigeria's economy with China. It will benefit many different sectors of our economy and boost trade between the two countries.
This one is coming from All Cup. Kindly enlighten us with I'll take that again. Kindly enlighten us with the SMEs on how and what to do to benefit from the currency swap. For instance, I'm buying a machine from China and I've been given an FOB quote in US dollars. Does it make it cheaper?
All right, Dahiru Muhammad, this is a welcome development. It will not only ease our business, but reduce inflation in the country. Thanks to PMB.
That's President Muhammad Buhari. Now, let's go to the next one, which is coming from Ogbeni Omogbolahun. Its merit is largely in the drastic reduction on the pressure for dollar purchase. Most of Nigeria's imports are from China. Therefore, it presupposes that businesses and trade between the two countries will be a lot easier as there won't be need for dollar conversion.
Okay, once again from Obwemi, one of the challenges the yuan-naira swap deal may have is the same round-tripping that's peculiar to the dollar bank executives. CBN officials must be closely monitored by the federal government so that they don't profit from this arrangement at the detriment of business operators.
And we have the last one coming from Daniel Nwemo. I believe the use of the currency swap will enhance transactions between the two countries, but we need to ensure that it is not sabotaged and monopolized for personal interest. Now, these are the tweets coming in from our viewers online. We hope some of you would join us in the course of the conversation. Let's go quickly to Mr. Okorafa. I guess you are itching to respond to some of the tweets.
One of them said that the CBN should be monitored so that they don't shortchange the operators.
That's the one I want to address first. And I want to assure the gentleman that CBN officials don't get involved in this kind of thing at all. And we don't get involved in anything that...
You don't facilitate it?
We do not do that. Our system is so structured in such a way that you can't, it's not possible. And of course, if any of our officials is found to have compromised his official position, that person goes and is severely sanctioned. And I also want to assure that in this case, there's nothing like round tripping. Since you don't see the renminbi, you won't see it. So it's all electronic, and you do it, it's paid on your behalf. So they should rest assured that there isn't anything like that. And that is why we are saying we can't give the renminbi to traders. They have to fall within the informal channels. Somebody talked about capital flight and dumping. Of course, capital flight in this case also, the round-tripping answer addresses that. They cannot be dumping here, and I have addressed that problem. I have said that transactions on this deal will have to be formal transactions, and the goods, well, dumping is defined as simply as selling your goods below the cost in order to capture the market. But it won't happen here because goods are competitive internationally. Goods that come in through this channel will be goods of the best international standard that you get. And the only thing you can say is that Chinese goods may be cheaper, but they must meet the international standards. So dumping will not happen. Again, no commodity, no good that is listed on the 41 items will benefit from this deal. We have said it.
But what do we have on ground in terms of monitoring mechanism to ensure that this does not happen? You keep saying it cannot, but how?
To ensure that what doesn't
dumping, happen? This issue of dumping.
You see, let me tell you, we can only do what we can do. It is the responsibility of another agency of government to deal with that. What we can do is to ensure that before you get onto this deal, on the other side also, that the Chinese manufacturer meets the local standards that have been set, which are also equivalent to the international standard, just like us here. And so there are agencies that must ascertain the quality of goods that are exported and imported. So that we do not have capacity to deal with. But we are working with all the agencies. We are working with them to ensure that we get the maximum benefits from this whole deal.
And that leads me to the issue of consultation with various actors, as we heard from Barrister Ken Okoha.
We have done that. We are consulting with agencies. Barrister Okoha was abroad when we went to Aba, and he was very helpful in contacting his people. We went to Kano. We have been to Lagos. Under the auspices of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, Prince, who is looking at me here, was very helpful in sensitizing the states, the north central states that came here. And it's across the country we've done that. And we will continue to sensitize people as we also address some of the challenges that come. And I also want to correct one impression. It is not 4 months old. We signed the agreement on the 27th of April. But the operationalization started a little over 1 month ago, and we have done 3 auctions.
Since then?
Yes, we have done 3 auctions.
All right. We'll return to Prince Kayode this time around, because a lot has been said about Nigeria being a floodgate, for Chinese goods, and of course CBN has refuted the fact that that's not going to develop in the process of implementing this deal. But come to talk of it, if you look at the manufacturing capacity of Nigeria, it is nothing to write home about compared to that of China. Now, what about this exchange of goods in terms of transactions that this swap will bring about? Who benefits? What are the merits and demerits as it concerns Nigeria and China? Perhaps we may still be on the lower side of this deal.
Well, you see, it's a win-win thing. We know where we are. We're a developing economy. We must begin to strengthen our productive capacity. How do we do that? We need raw materials, most of which we don't have. We need spare parts, most of it we don't have. We need equipment, most of it we don't have. So we have to import. So we'll now look for a trading partner that we can import from, and in a way that will be easier for us to fund and to get it in. From the statistics, we have a very strong trade. In fact, China is the largest trading partner of Nigeria now. Okay, and we are their second largest trading partner in Africa. So we deal with them. I will now put in this finance mechanism whereby going through the processes, you can source funding for these items, raw materials, spare parts, and machines. You know the advantage of spare parts. It enables you to keep the life of your machines long enough. And also begin to produce things that we now import. By the time we begin to expand the base of our production, we'll reduce importing finished products, especially household goods, consumables, food-related, processed food and stuff. So this will help the economy. And it's very, very important for us to do this. As it is today, China's economy is maybe second largest in the world, but maybe de facto it is the largest. And we must learn from them. We must work with them. Okay, that is one. So this is a deal that we must keep to. And we cannot start saying we are at par with them because we are not. But then, we could also produce things that we could export to China or to other countries. The only issue that is there that I would like, and I don't think really is the discussion I want to take up today, is when we export now to China, either raw materials or semi-processed goods or even processed or whatever, or even our solid minerals, because there's a huge demand for that now in China, or wood products and stuff. How are we paid? Are we paid in Naira, or we're paid in renminbi, or we're paid in dollar? Can we take that transaction out of this matrix? Because the swap deal really is for purpose of issuing LCs in renminbi to China, and also but because you see the other way is that even Chinese companies will gain from this transaction. They will have a pool of money in Naira, right? Which they can use to do business here. Which they can even use to fund some of the projects that they are doing here, because there's huge infrastructural projects going on here. Some of them are financially challenged now. They're slowed down because there's need, is denominated in dollar, and there's a dollar squeeze. Now, if there's this huge basket of Naira with them, they too can use to fund local projects here, make them more competitive, and these projects can go. Now, don't forget that by the time we develop our infrastructure, it will help our productive base. It helps to create jobs and expand the economy. So there's a win-win thing, but there, as I said, it's still early in the day. There are quite a number of issues to be taken. But the incentive for Nigerians to export and earn Naira, you need to look at that very closely. That's one. Two, what will ultimately happen if do we export our petrol, our crude oil to China? They are one of our largest buyers now. Do we earn renminbi, or do we earn Naira, or do we earn dollar? Okay, so some of these issues we need to take, but as I said, it's early in the day because a lot of things need to work. But currency swap, as a matter of policy, it's regular, normal financial mechanism people are using to show up what they do. Then I want to finally quickly take this issue of dispute resolution, either at individual level, that is company to company, or at state level, there will be disputes. It's normal. And I think that it would be a good thing, maybe when we go for this Nigerian-Chinese business forum that's taking place in the next week or so, we need to put in a formal mechanism for tackling for dispute resolution, both here in Nigeria and in China. So where a Nigerian business person has a problem, he can go to arbitration here in Nigeria. The Chinese
let us stop you there. You know, the time is beckoning on us to round off this program. But before we do that, Joy, we need to return to Lagos, yes, to Mr. Adebajo. What will be your final thoughts, or what will be your final thoughts on this matter? We have raised a number of issues, Mr. Adebajo. We have raised a number of issues here now at this closing aspect of this conversation. Would you like to also touch on one or two things said by Mr. Isaac Okorafor and Kayode? Briefly.
Unfortunately, I think there was a signal failure when Isaac was responding, but I think Isaac has already done a good job in articulating the position, and I think which is all very positive. What I would just like to add in closing is that my own suggestion, my own humble suggestion and recommendation, is that China is becoming more active in our economy. More so, they're working on some rail projects and also on this Mambila hydro project, which I think is valued close to about $6 billion. Our debt profile has gone up to about $72 billion US, and I think the Chinese are now accounting for about 10% of our debt profile. So the Chinese are not only becoming important in terms of trade, but also in terms of the loans that they're giving to Nigeria and the projects that they're working on. So it's a welcome development, and we'll find out that in another year, the 2.5 billion would be used up, and I think we're going to need some more. What I would like to emphasize is the fact that we need to start to look at all the multiple exchange rate windows that we have. We need to start looking at convergence right away. I disagree with the fact that there's nothing to be gradual about it. You need to shut down these windows because they are not only causing distortions to the foreign exchange system, but we are not able to get a rate of 250, which I believe, considering the level of the reserves that we have in Nigeria today and the way the economy is moving, we should be able to see 250. When you shut down these multiple windows you have, according to the World Bank, we have about $25 billion worth of remittances from the diaspora every year. Unfortunately, this money is going mostly into the black market at 357 or 360 to fund this informal market trade. It is important that the central bank puts in a mechanism to be able to trap this money and making sure that the difference between the official exchange rate and the black market rate is very minimal. We've done this before. Once you do that, then all of a sudden everybody knows that there's no difference. You might as well go to the bank and collect your money. And the rates are converged, and of course you will see that lowering rate. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Like I've said, I think it's good, and I think that it's a very good start. Innovation is good for this economy, especially, and they always say that necessity, of course, is the mother of invention. And but I think that we should look at closing these windows so that we can have convergence in our currency and we can have value for our currency, which of course will be the ultimate driver of economic goal. Because ultimately the reason why we're doing these swaps is to be able to make our currency stronger and to be able to get our economy to grow. So on that note, I think I would leave it there.
Adebajo, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you very much for your wonderful contribution from Lagos. All right, let's go over quickly to our Kaduna studio. Let's join Dr. Ibrahim Ango. Dr. Ango, we have looked at a couple of issues this morning. We've talked about this policy, how nice it is, and some of the challenges. Let's hear your final view.
I believe, like has been said, that this is a win-win situation. We don't have much alternatives. China, the position of China today in the global economy is such that every nation, not just in Africa, everywhere in the world, there is increased trade and interaction with China. So what we are doing is going to be positive for Nigeria. What I think we need to do more, and I want the central bank to do more, is to as well encourage exports as much as we can, not only to China, but to other countries. This certainly will reduce pressure on the exchange rate and will strengthen the naira. But beyond that, I think talking about import, we need to talk more about also export. We also need to emphasize as much as possible that this structure is meant for spare parts, for raw materials, for machinery, as much as possible, rather than for finished goods. I think if we emphasize more on that, it will be more to the benefit of Nigerians. I also think that for the government, generally, to support this initiative, whatever can be produced in Nigeria, be it furniture, be it whatever it is, it should be sourced from Nigerian companies rather than from China or from anywhere else. If we do that, I'm sure the naira will again become stronger and stronger. That is my conclusion. Thank you.
Very much indeed. Gentlemen, we are going to round off this edition of the program, and I'd like to thank you immensely for your contributions coming from professional point of view. First of all, Mr. Aziko Kora, for Acting Director of Communications, Central Bank of Nigeria. Well, we thank you for your insights this morning.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Now, former Minister Prince Adesokunbo Kayode, President of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Barrister Ken Ukoha, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Thank you indeed for your contribution.
Thank you,
I
Nigerians.
believe that your men are going to benefit from this deal.
We hope so.
Thank you. And Dr. Ibrahim Ango, Associate Professor of Business Entrepreneurship and Director, Academic Planning, Kaduna State University. It's been wonderful hearing from you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you indeed. And of course, we've appreciated Mr. Telawa Adebajo, financial analyst, who reached us from Lagos. Now, next on Good Morning Nigeria is sports.